Recently, I've noticed that a lot of people are feeling pulled to level up their life or step into their next chapter, but they don't quite know what to do to make that transition happen. In this video, I'm going to go over 4 very important key pieces of the process that people often miss. Hi, my name is Brianna, and I am an absolute nerd when it comes to anything personal growth and the science of change. Throughout my own journey and spending the last 6 years helping others create change in their lives, as well as continuously consuming anything around change, I've picked up a few things along the way. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first one is gaining clarity. It is so easy to have a vague idea of what it is that we want in our lives, but if I have learned anything in my experience with myself and working with others and learning the science of change, it's that clarity is absolutely necessary. Like, go get out a pen and paper and reflect and articulate what it is that you want so that you have a clear picture and direction. This makes it so much easier to actually do the things that will get you where you want to go and actually create the change that you want to see. So if you are at a place where you are ready to step into your next chapter and create a life more aligned with what you want and who you want to be, here's what to do. So I've created this template in Notion. If you want to use it, you can download it and just make a copy for free in the description below, but you can obviously do this on your own in your own way as well. So over here, we've got different areas of life, different aspects, and then we've got our current reality and our desired reality. So you want to reflect on what your current reality looks like in these areas of life and what your desired reality looks like in these areas of life. Now, if you just want to focus on 1 to 2 specific areas, by all means, do that. Often less is more anyways, but I know it can be really fun to sit there and just really reflect on what life looks like for you currently, as well as daydream about, okay, what kind of life do I want to step into? Now, you may find yourself avoiding writing out what your current reality looks like, but one of the best things that you can do is really get a clear picture of where you are currently and just being honest with yourself, as that will help you really see where that gap is between where you are currently and where you want to go, right? And we don't need to make any kinds of judgments or any kinds of stories about where we are currently. We can just acknowledge where we are and acknowledge the difference between where we are and where we want to be and go from there. One more note I want to make is that it can be extremely easy to think of our absolute dream desired reality, maybe like even 10 years from now, right? Instead of thinking about our next chapter, we think about 5 chapters from now. But I really want you to think about this as, what do you really want and what do you want to level up and change in your next chapter? And this is not a permanent process, so you can continue to go through this process as you move chapter to chapter. The next key piece of the equation that often gets missed is defining the very specific actions that are going to help change your lifestyle and what your life looks like. Thinking about what you want or having intentions of doing things is all fine and great, but it's not going to get you very far. I can't tell you how many times that I've talked to someone who was looking to reach a goal or make a change in their life, and they could not define these specific things that they were doing or were planning to do to make that happen. It's very common. So to really make a change, we're going to get very specific on the things that you can do in order to make this change come to fruition. These actions will essentially act as your North Star of what to do to make this happen. This part can be tricky because maybe we feel like we don't quite know what actions to take. We create actions that are very vague, or our brain is like, oh my gosh, we need to do like 1,001 things. So my advice is to, 1, not keep things super vague. So for example, let's say over here, we're like working out, typos, exercising. Those are pretty vague. So to make it more specific, we can go in and we can say, going on a daily 20-minute walk, lifting twice a week, and doing Pilates once a week. And that right there is so much more specific than just exercising, working out. My second piece of advice is that you probably know more of what to do than you think you do or that you're telling yourself you do. And we often unintentionally overcomplicate things. So just pause and recognize, and you can ask yourself, okay, am I making this more complicated than it needs to be? Where could I simplify this? Where could I make this simpler? And if you feel like you still have no idea really what actions to take for whatever you have under your desired reality, you can do some research. You can think about someone who has the outcome that you want and think about, okay, what kind of things do they do? What kind of decisions do they make? Or feel free to leave a comment or reach out to me, and I will help you to the best of my abilities. Then there you have it. You have this clarity and a beautiful roadmap that can serve as a North Star on what to do daily and weekly to help you step into this new chapter. The next thing that often gets left out of the equation, but is such a vital component, is actually changing you. We get so caught up on external things, but true lasting change actually comes from changing ourselves. It's so easy to think, okay, I want to get fit and have more muscle tone and lose some weight. But those are outcomes. And in order to be successful in this endeavor and actually stick with the actions that will get you the outcomes that you want, you have to become the type of person who stays active, who keeps up with their fitness routine, who watches what they eat. And I'd argue that you have to become the type of person who enjoys those things at least to some extent. You have to see yourself as becoming that type of person, as liking those types of things, as the version of you who makes those types of decisions, and understand that we are all capable of change. Just because you have not historically liked something doesn't mean that you can't like something in the future. Just because historically you have been one way doesn't mean that you can't evolve into becoming a new version of you. We are wired for evolution and change. So just keep that in your back pocket. So 1, look at the things that you wrote in your desired column and just ask yourself, do I want to be that type of person? Do I want to be the type of person who exercises regularly? Do I want to be the type of person who keeps my house tidy? If the answer is no, again, we don't need to make any kind of judgment about that. We don't need to create a story about that. We can simply just take it off or adjust. Then we're going to spend a little bit more time developing out the next version of you. You can think about this as your 2.0 self, your future self, your dream or desired self, whatever resonates with you. But you're going to envision this version of you and just answer out these questions. And feel free to add a question if there's something that comes to mind for you. And then what you want to do is think about, okay, what kind of actions might support this? The more detail and the more clarity we get around here, the easier it is to actually do these things. So, for example, instead of saying, I am someone who keeps my life together, okay, it's hard for your brain to think about exactly what it can do to be someone who has your life together. If you 2.0 is someone that keeps their life together, what kind of actions support that? What could help make you feel that way? An example could be prepping your lunches. That might make you feel like you're more organized and have your life together. So just brainstorm here, brainstorm what this next version of you looks like and what kind of actual tangible actions could support that. I wrote out the next version of me in 2020 and saw huge changes, and again in 2024. And it's been really cool to see things shift. On a day-to-day basis, it may not feel like much is happening, but one day you look back at your list and you're like, wait, that's me now. That's so cool. And I also want to say that none of this is creating anything permanent. You may try something on, experiment with it, and then realize, oh, I don't actually really like this. This doesn't actually feel very me. And that is different from the discomfort from being outside of our norm. But if something does not resonate, if something doesn't feel great or fit into your lifestyle or who you want to be, that's okay. You just leave it. It's just an experiment. I mean, life is just all one big experiment really anyways. With this newfound insight, think about what you do want and go from there. The last piece of the equation is making a plan for implementation. Planning out how you're going to do something makes execution far more likely. So at the very top here, you'll see a button called Next Steps. So we'll click that and you'll see that there are very few spaces. Often when we are daydreaming and envisioning who we want to be, the life that we want to have, the changes that we want to make, our brain is like, okay, cool, let's do like 2,000 things. We're typically pretty excited and just ready to make all these kinds of changes. But trying to do too many things usually does not lead to making really any change because our energy and focus just isn't really potent in one direction. So, my best advice is to just pick 1 to 4 things that you really want to prioritize at this time. So, if you go back into everything that you wrote down here in whichever bubble, think about which ones are the most important to you right now. Which things do you want to prioritize? And then what you want to do is go in and write out what is involved in those actions. So you can write out your priority here and then write out what actions are going to support that thing. And you don't need to fill out all 4. You can just do 1. I just don't advise doing more than 4. So you might come in here and write out one of your main priorities right now is to have a fitness routine. And then you'd write out all the actions involved in that. We can make it similar to what I wrote in the other example. And that right there is fairly involved. If you are someone who does not currently have a fitness routine, starting to do all of that is quite a big change. There are a lot of steps involved. So in that case, it may be best to just have one priority or to have another one that's fairly small. So just be honest with yourself and think about, what do you feel really confident and capable of doing in your life at this time? And then what you want to do is actually have a plan for implementation. So in this example, that could look like going on a 15-minute walk after I wake up every morning, picking 2 days out of the week to go to the gym and lift, and picking 1 day each week to go to Pilates. And maybe I'll add in there every single week on Sunday, I will look at my schedule and my calendar and pick out which days I'm going to go to the gym and which day I'm going to go to Pilates. So that's an example of creating a plan for how, when, what, where you're actually going to do the things. And then one of the best things you can do, if this is something that you really want to follow through with, if you're really looking to create change and step into your next level, is create a plan for follow through and anticipate and think about what kind of obstacles or roadblocks might come up along the way of me pursuing this change, of starting to implement these things into my life. And then think about, okay, how do I want to navigate those? And we can go ahead and anticipate that we might fall off the wagon, right? That's maybe not something that we want to think about. We might get a little avoidant around that and think, no, I'm going all in right now. That's not going to happen. But let's just be realistic. And you can even think about it as playing in the hypotheticals. If I were to fall off the wagon, how do I want myself to respond? You can go ahead and create a roadmap for yourself here so that if it were to happen, you already have a plan in place to get back on track. Now, we could sit here and talk about what kind of obstacles or roadblocks could come up and how we could navigate those all day. There are so many different ways to approach this, but I don't want this to be like a 3-hour YouTube video. So I will leave it to your best judgment here. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to just leave them in the comments or reach out to me. And the last thing I want to note is as you create your priorities, it doesn't mean that you leave everything that you wrote in the other template behind. We created this for a reason, right? We created this vision for yourself so that it can live as this vision in your head of how you want to show up, the kinds of things you're working towards, the kind of life and reality you want to create. So even though you are prioritizing whatever it is that you choose to, you can still have the other things in the back of your mind and notice throughout the day when you can do little things here and there that still align with those things as well. These things here, these priorities are just what you're really focused on implementing, what you're treating more of a non-negotiable. This is what I'm focused on creating change in my life around. This is what I'm focused on really doing and sticking with. This is the type of person I'm focused on becoming at this time. And then as these start to feel more natural, you can start to implement new things and prioritize new things and bring those into your life. So my friends, those are the 4 key pieces that will help you level up your life. If you want more info on how to continue to follow through, you can check out this video here. And again, if you want to use this Notion template for free, go ahead and just grab the link in the description.